everyone. Apparently Wayne is away on holiday and he cannot video the BST meeting, so they've asked me to come and do it, so I'm on my way there to do that now, meet up with the BST guys. Hopefully I won't cock it up.
Much for joining us. I hope you approve of the new venue. The Bloomfield Club want me to let you know that you don't have to be a member to drink here on a match day, so you're very welcome to come in. I think it's great, lots of space, and hopefully everybody can see and everybody can hear. Yeah, we might have a quiz night here one day. Right, let's crack on, because Tim Fielding's come to join us. He's required back at the club soon, so we're going to put Tim on first. There's lots and lots of questions being asked and things going on, understandably, about the status of the football club and is Owen Oyston coming back and all this sort of nonsense. So Tim is here to answer questions, so let's get straight on with it. Does anybody have any questions for, or do you want to say something first? Okay, Tim will speak first.
Afternoon everybody. Excuse the monkey suit, as Christine says, I'm due elsewhere in a short while. I appreciate the opportunity of being able to speak today. I think we've just completed the 8th week of the receivership, well, 9 weeks from the receivership, but 8th week since we actually came into the club and took over responsibility for day-to-day operations. And as you might imagine, particularly in the first couple of weeks, that was quite a challenging task, particularly with the fact that Dennis offices were still in occupation. So really, I'd like to think that over the course of the last 8 weeks, we've demonstrated in a relatively early stage that we're taking a proactive approach to dealing with various issues. It's never going to be perfect, but you will have seen, albeit it was a temporary repair, you'll see that we got the screen going again, which we felt was quite important from the point of view of demonstrating to fans that we actually cared about what was going on. And it's unbelievable that you've got a scoreboard and it doesn't work, but it's obsolete technology, and we could only do a temporary repair. What you are going to see today, albeit with content will obviously be limited, is a new screen in there, which is state of the art. I'm reliably told it's one of the best, if not the best, in professional football in England. So that's an early demonstration of what we as an interim board hope to do, not on one level. I think you'll also see, I've been quite pleasantly surprised how much the pitch has improved over the course of the last 2 weeks. I think those who've been in there doing the seat cleaning and tidying up, which is greatly appreciated, will testify to that. Obviously it's not perfect yet. There are bald areas still where in the obvious places that you'll see, but I think you'll all be pleasantly surprised by how that's improved. And we've also obviously tried to take some pressure off the refreshment kiosk by introducing these bottle bars, essentially to make sure that people can get a drink, and also people who don't want a drink can get to the kiosk and actually get a brew or a pie, whatever it might be. So we're trying our best. It's a very challenging situation, as you can imagine, to come into a football club the way we had to do and then deal with the challenges of getting as many fans as we did into that first game, most we've had in since 1977. And we've also hopefully going to see a decent crowd today. I think we're looking at 13,000, which is fantastic. Now there's a few things obviously that I know people have issues with, and most certainly probably most pressing is the issue of season tickets. Matt put out a piece today, I don't know if people have seen the Gazette. It was a little bit vague about pricing, and I'm happy to be more upfront about that. We had a fans forum, what was it, 3 weeks ago now I think. There was a fair few people in this room who were there. I tried to make it as representative as we could across the spectrum. So we had all the fans groups represented, and also an election effectively for the general fan base, and about 50% of those who applied were able to have a say and be there. What we took, the focus of that, we had a lot of things we wanted to discuss, but the focus of that was season ticket pricing, which is always going to be a controversial subject. and the official, the sort of the real sort of push on that's going to start on Wednesday. But I think there was a recognition in the room that the current level of pricing was unsustainable. I think there's been a lot been said on the forums about doing a Bradford model. The problem you've got with the Bradford model is that it carries with it an element of risk. And as an interim board, we're not really in a position to start adopting those risks and those strategies that a new owner who might be in place as early as July might not want to follow. So we've obviously formed our view as to how it should be done, and the view, we took that to the forum, and the forum came back really on 4 particular points. The first of those was that a price above £300 for the standard match ticket would be a price that would be viewed unfavourably. The second thing was that there was a recognition of a need to make some provision for those who fall in the 18 to 21 bracket, where at the moment there's a lot of people there either at university or college or in very low paid employment as they start in their careers, and that paying a full price at that age wasn't viewed as ideal. There was also a view that there should be a payment plan, and that there should be an early bird option. Now, what we've tried to do in the season ticket pricing, and obviously I'm conscious that time's limited today, is to try and accommodate all those requests. So what we are going to see is, in relation to the standard seating, is standard price of £299 is the price, but with an early bird that takes it down to £269. So when the details fully come out on Wednesday, that's what you're going to see. What you are going to see as well is pricing for children between 5 and 11, where previously that was free of charge. Appreciate that's might be viewed as controversial to some, but at the end of the day, if we look around the other clubs in the country, and there's very few offer free of charge tickets to under 11s. So there is going to be a charge. That's going to be £75, and there's also going to be a removal of the concession between 60 and 65, and effectively that's to accommodate the 18 to 21 year bracket. The introduction of that is offset by the removal of it further up. So again, I know that people who are 62, 63 are already in that concession bracket that's already been mentioned to me, aren't necessarily going to be happy, but there's a balance to be struck. What you've got to bear in mind is that when we came into this football club on 22nd of February, I think the day was, might be a couple of days later actually, that we've had to go from a standing start, and there's a lot to do. We've done a couple of things, but that pitch needs sorting out close season. That has to be financed out of cash. Can't be financed by a loan, because we're not in a position as an interim board to start project managing an extensive development that then relies on funding, because that could impact on somebody's willingness to take that over. We've got to sort out the East Stand. That East Stand will not be open next season unless we do capital works to it. The first 5 rows, which are currently netted off, all have to be replaced. Otherwise, we are down to 11,500 capacity, which is the last thing we want. Because we're going to look at housing which is part of the things that came out of the forum, because we're looking to house the away fans in the north section of the east, we've got to make some capital provision there with it, because if you walk around that area, the toilet provision there at the moment is shocking. And if anybody went in that area in the South End game, you will know that, and that's not acceptable, and we've got to deal with that as well. So we've got 3 lots of capital works that we have, in my view, have to do, and that relies on a reasonable level of income coming into the football club over the traditionally lean period, which is the period between the last game of this season and the beginning of next season. So these are the realities that we're having to deal with. So as much as we would like to accommodate the cheapest pricing in the league, as much as we might want to accommodate concessions at every single level that we can. The reality is that we've got to balance the books. We cannot trade in red. If we had put forward projections which suggested that, we would have got a 12-point deduction. We didn't. We didn't because our cash flow projections, whilst sensible, had to show a certain level of income coming in. And the EFL reserved the right to revisit that if those projections, because we have to submit, well, every club I think has to submit their cash flows every month under the financial fair play rules. If ours starts showing a dip into the red, we have a problem. And the primary, well, forget about the problem of trading in red when we can't do, we will also have the problem of having to deal with the EFL. So my view was that the season ticket pricing as it was to a certain degree a bit of an attempt to bribe us to go to games when otherwise we weren't doing, which didn't work because of the character that we all showed and standing by our principles. But unless you're going to adopt a Bradford-style policy, and whilst Bradford have kept their numbers going through the stadium up, what we have seen is they've actually got quite a poor budget, and that's reflected by the fact they got relegated. And whether that's linked to the pricing or not, I don't know. But I know that keeps getting thrown at us. At the moment, we are the fourth. If you take the league as it stands at the moment, we're the fourth cheapest in the league, behind Bradford, Rochdale, and Accrington. But the cheaper seats, I think Charlton maybe as well, but the cheaper seats, most certainly in Accrington and Rochdale, are terrace tickets. So they have a terrace provision. If you compare seat with seat, they're more expensive than we are. So under this new pricing, if you buy a season ticket on the early bird, you get it's about a 41% reduction against match day pricing, which in itself is going to be reduced down to £20. To tie with something that came out of the forum about 20's Plenty, which is a campaign that the supporters organisations have been running for some time. So reducing match day pricing, and if you do buy a season ticket, there's effectively on that standard ticket price, there's a 40% reduction. So there's different permutations within that. I've just spoken to Karen before. The hospitality provision is still being looked at. Karen's made a point to me that obviously, depending on where you sit in the ground and what the club's plans are for hospitality, that there might be a crossover where you want to make a commitment to buy a ticket and you don't know yet whether you're going to be able to get it in M Block. M Block at the moment is not guaranteed as being available for season ticket purchases. What I've been told by Michael Bolingbroke, who's taking responsibility for dealing with that, is that if you have a season ticket in M Block already, and you either have had it all the way throughout, or alternatively you can show that you had it in 2014 before the boycott, then they will do their best to honour that provision. But that's the point I will be taking back, because I can understand the point being made that, you know, if season tickets go on sale on Wednesday and you don't know whether that's going to be available, then that might cause some doubt as to what you should do and when you should do it.
Sorry, can I just make a quick point? I did ask that question in the ticket office as I was coming down.
Yeah.
And I asked whether M Block would be available. And the message I got, or seemed to be, from the chap who served me was that, yeah, you'll just have to come in and see if they're available or not. And this is obviously something different that you're saying now.
Yeah, it's slightly different. I think what will happen is if you want to register for an M Block ticket, and I'll hopefully have more clarification on this even by Wednesday when the official announcement comes out, because it is a point that does need dealing with. That I don't know how many season tickets. I mean, if you have the hospitality provision in M Block, I don't think there's going to be an issue. But if you have a seat only ticket in M Block, then that's where at the moment, as at Friday, I was told by Michael that there was no guarantee that you would have that ticket, but they will be doing their best to accommodate those who've been there, not just ones who've had it for the last 2 or 3 games, but those who've been in there over an extended period of time. But what they want to do is, as I understand it, is to use M Block for the corporate hospitality, and they are looking at rejigging the hospitality as a whole, which hasn't been finalised yet, which will impact on the ability to put them elsewhere. So, there's a trade-off. At the end of the day, where Blackpool hasn't had much corporate sponsorship over the last 4 or 5 years, the interim board are working very hard to deliver that, because it helps us deliver what we want to do on and off the pitch. So I'm based. I mean, the other thing, I think one other point I just mentioned is the north. That there's slight complication, but two things we're doing with the north, and it actually by default ended up happening at Plymouth. Was that's going over just to home fans from where it was split previously. So the Fleetwood fans are in the south today, the south part of the east. That's only a temporary arrangement till next season. So we have got the north to ourselves today. I think if it's not sold out, it's virtually sold out. So there should be fantastic atmosphere coming from there. We also tried to look at having unreserved seating there, which the idea being is that you can just buy a season ticket and go and sit with your mates and your friends without having to block book things to make sure you're all sat together. That's not quite worked, because the EFL have sort of given us an adverse view on the impact of that. So they are at the moment. I know the club have spoken to some representatives from the MSG, I think, this morning about trying to ensure we can keep that atmosphere while still meeting the compliance with the EFL rules. So that one's still up in the air. We had hoped it was just going to be completely unreserved seating, but it doesn't seem that can actually be the case. But we tried. The point being is we had representations at the fans forum that's what people wanted. I was keen on delivering it, but at the end of the day, you do come up against red tape sometimes, and you have to adapt what you're trying to do accordingly. So I'm happy to take questions. We try and be as transparent as possible. I know there's been a lot of rumours around there. I think what I'd rather do is, rather than try and prejudge the questions on that, is just take them and deal with them as best I can.
Thanks, Tim. You've talked a lot there about the finances, but one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and there has been a bit of a debate on the message board about it from some of these faceless keyboard warriors, about Valeri's position with regards to the finances, because I think he made, or at least Clifford Chance on his behalf, made the comment that he would support the club during this period, but as far as I'm aware, that support hasn't been forthcoming. Could you perhaps explain that to us?
Yeah, our position as the board, and of course I was in court when that was said. In fact, it came out in the same couple of sentences where we learned for the first time that they were prepared to consider a fans representative on the board moving forward. It was introduced, wasn't it, I think around lunchtime on the day. From the board's perspective, we've got to operate, our position is we've got to operate in the black. And we are doing that, and we're doing it successfully up to now. And we want to carry on doing that, because the concern would be is if there is a black hole in our finances, that we've automatically, irrespective of whether Valery Bellicon puts his hand in his pocket to support, we've got a potential problem, because the EFL could apply the deduction again. You know, they've reserved the right to revisit it. So from the board's perspective, we're just going to operate as if that support's not there. If that support's required, then Valery Bellicon will have to be asked whether he's prepared to stand on with that offer. I'm hoping that it's not going to be required. Any more questions? Just, I can't.
Tim, thanks so much. Just to clarify, is it the announcement that's going to be made on Wednesday for season tickets, or are they on sale from Wednesday?
They're on sale from Wednesday, is my understanding. That they will be physically on sale from that point.
And what about the people who've had season tickets up to that point? Are we starting from a level playing field?
Anybody who's had a season ticket already should have had an email from the club already offering them first dibs on the tickets. If you haven't had that email, that's your existing ticket, or if you want to move, where do you want to move to? If you haven't had that, I'd check your spam boxes, because you should have had it. And if you haven't had it, then maybe try and speak to the club on Tuesday if it's possible. But most certainly, that's my understanding, that 4,000 emails went out to those who've got season tickets at the moment, asking that question. They went out last week.
Yeah, just to add on to that, how long do these people have these first dibs to go for it?
Only for that 7-day period, which ends, as I understand it, on Tuesday.
Just 7 days.
Yeah, I mean, equally, there's a lot of. I'm not expecting that day one, it's not like we're in the Premiership where there's a massive rush for 12,000 tickets that's on sale. That the realistically, the season, you would think the season tickets will be in the order. I mean, I'd be very pleasantly surprised, for instance, if we had 7,000. So there's plenty of seats at the stadium. I know some people might want to try and return to specific seats, and I think there'll be good opportunity to do that for most people. But what we've got to bear in mind is that, you know, if you've got a season ticket at the moment, you have at the moment, as I understand it, a first option on that seat, or to move, as long as the other seat that you're looking to move to is already free.
So you think it is that 7 days?
That's 7. That's my understanding. I've expected season tickets to go on sale on Wednesday, and those emails were sent out last week. I know they were sent. Now, if you haven't had one, as I said, please contact the club.
Okay, thanks very much.
Karen.
I was just wanting to add a bit more of a question in regards to that gentleman's question about Valeri. Is he still classified as a shareholder in the football club? And if he is, does that not allow him to put money into the club to keep it going? Or does the court receiver now control everything, including his shareholding?
My understanding is the receiver piggybacks onto Owen's shareholding. I say Owen's, it's actually Blackpool, what was suggested, Blackpool Properties shareholding in BFC, which is 77%. So he's almost like, the easiest way to think about it is he's piggybacked on him, and he controls that 77% shareholding at the moment. Valeri's 20% shareholding remains Valeri's 20% and isn't subject to the receiver's direct control, but indirectly, of course, the receiver controls all the finances of the football club through the interim board that's been appointed, and Valeri's obviously happy for that to happen because it's part of the process that's enforcing the judgment he's got against Suggester, as was, and Owen and Carl. So obviously there is the difficult scenario of what happens with that 20% as and when Valeri is fully repaid. But that's something I understand the receiver's working on at the moment with a view to dealing with. In relation to the investment in the football club, that would come back to the discussion we had before about what was said in court. I've not spoken to Valeri personally, and neither has anybody, as far as I'm aware, on the interim board since the receiver's appointment. I'm sure the receivers have spoken to him. But we're working on the basis there is going to be no capital injection from Valeri Bellicon over the period, the interregnum between the Oyston ownership and any new ownership. Because to operate that way is a recipe for disaster as far as we're concerned. Because if that money doesn't turn up, we've got a massive problem. So we're just working with what we've got, and that's what we'll work with.
Thank you. Tim, I get the impression from what you are saying that when you took over, there wasn't a penny in the books. That can't be right, surely.
The expression "the cupboard was bare" is one that Ben and I spoke about before I came here as to what I could say to you. What I can't comment on is speculation about why the cupboard was bare, because that's outside our remit. There is speculation out there, and I'm not in a position to deal with that because we came in on whatever it was. It was the week. It was 10 days after the 13th, so it was about the 22nd or the 23rd of February. We came in, and in simple terms, other than the money to pay the players' wages, which was due that Thursday, we've had a standing start, and it's been great that we've had the revenues from the games, but obviously that only takes you so far. We've got a monthly wage bill to pay, which is actually higher than I thought it would be. We've got the PAYE and VAT liabilities to deal with on an ongoing basis, as any business would, and you can perfectly imagine that if we don't keep up with those, what the implications of that will be. So obviously when people talked on the forums, and I know that's not necessarily representative of the fan base as a whole, but when people talk on the forums about holding back their money, from an interim board's perspective, that causes problems, because we've got plans to improve the matchday experience for everybody from the start of next season, which, you know, as I talked about at the beginning, hopefully you're starting to see. And our ability to deliver those plans relies upon what we project, what we expect to receive by way of season ticket income. Now you can say, well, that's unrealistic, but we can only operate that way, and we've tried to be as fair as we can. I think we're still, with these price changes this year, in the top half of any league table of season ticket prices for Division 1. So, as in the cheapest at the top, I believe. Obviously, until everybody announces them and you actually do a comparison, the only proper comparison I could do was from 2017, where the BBC did a full survey of every division, and they actually showed them in a league table, and we were fourth cheapest at that point. But obviously things change, so for some reason it doesn't look like the statistical analysis was done in the same way as it was done for 2017, 2018. It wasn't done for this last season, or if it hasn't been released yet, so the information is 18 months out of date. But I don't expect it to be materially different, and I've always known that the pricing was that bribe, as I called it. You know, we go back 12 years and we were paying more then than we're proposing now, and quite significantly more as well. I think the season ticket prices were £100 more than we're proposing for this season in 2007, or thereabouts. Anyway, my recollection was it was £399 for a standard season ticket in 2007 when we came in the Championship, and I think the year before as well. So we are conscious that the community in which we live, we're trying to do it as fairly as we can. But it won't be. It can't be so bespoke that we cover every single eventuality. We're just trying. We look at it as fairly as we can. I like to think I've had some influence over that, and I like to think that those who attended the fans forum had a lot of influence on that as well. And Michael Bolingbroke really tried to make sure that he stuck within the points that he took away from that meeting as to what we thought was appropriate, and try and implement it into the strategy that he's now done. Anybody else?
So down at the back.
All right. Hi, Chris.
We've seen this last week that the Travelodge has gone up for sale. So are we to take from that it's not been included as part of the sale of the club that the receivers have sent out to these prospective buyers, and thus removing quite a big income stream from the future of the club?
Yeah, I suppose it's the way you look at that. I saw that on the forum. The Travelodge is being marketed separately. I mean, of course, that doesn't stop anybody who wants to buy the football club and the Travelodge from framing a bid that includes the Travelodge, as I understand it. I think you're perfectly at liberty to do that. The problem I envisage for anybody who's looking to buy it is that, unlike a scenario where you build that yourself on your own land, so if Blackpool FC had a spare piece of land now and did that strategically to produce an income stream, now it's got to be sold for its market value. So if somebody wants to buy the football club that includes the Travelodge, they're going to have to pay market value for the Travelodge. So all of a sudden, and no relevance to the figures, but if you're paying 12 million for the stadium and the football club, as an example, and it is an example, that's not based on anything I've seen. If you now want to buy the Travelodge, it's probably going to cost you 20 million. And that's just the reality of the situation, because what the receiver's got to get best market price within the constraints of what he's doing for all the assets, because you can imagine who's sat looking over his shoulder and what the implications will be if he sells any assets at an undervalue. In fact, if he tried to sell anything at an undervalue, I'm sure that there'll be an application to the court to stop it. So personally, I don't see the income from the Travelodge as being fundamental to a bid to purchase the club, because the capital outlay you have to put into it is going to have a disproportionate impact on what you're actually going to have to pay. So I expect it to be sold separately, is my thought process. The receivers marketed it separately, but as I've said, if we have somebody come in and say, actually we want that income stream, then they just bid for that as well. But you don't have to bid for that.
Tim, you need to go.
I'll take 2 more questions and then I'll go.
Just regarding the sale of the club, how close are we to getting a buyer? Are we, have we got a short list, or nothing seems to be coming out at the moment? So.
I mean, you've got to bear in mind that, and I'll be cards on the table here to the room. I don't know everybody who's put an expression of interest in. And to be honest, I'm not really bothered about knowing all the people who put an expression of interest in, because I doubt more than a handful of those are actually realistic anyway. That's very much in the receiver's domain. What he has done is he's appointed an international finance organisation to control that process. A very generalised prospectus has gone out to anybody who's interested. What you then do when you've registered your interest, and presumably, assuming they're satisfied that you're not a time waster, they give you access to something called a data room. And I think I spoke about this in one of the last meetings. With the data room, all the confidential information goes in there. You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement with the receiver before you're allowed access. And then you can basically, with a password, go into this. It's an online room, it's not a physical room, an online room, and access all the information that you might expect to want to know as a potential owner of the football club. Now, some of that information might be incomplete at the moment, and they'll carry on updating it as you get nearer and nearer to the date when the deadline for bids have to be submitted, which is the 15th of May at the moment. Now, I'm envisaging, and I'm not been involved in financing purchase of a football club, but I'm envisaging that thereafter there might still be more than one person who's still a serious bidder, and they'll then go into more of what we call a due diligence process. Where they will ask for more information, and then maybe we'll reach a point where the receiver goes into exclusivity with somebody and says, right, now this is the person I think is the right person. What we've got to bear in mind is, and he has stressed this himself, is that his primary obligation is to get as much money as he can for the football club, not to deliver the best purchaser for us, who might be off. So we might have what we think is the ideal purchaser. If they're offering 7 million and there's somebody else offering 10, then there's going to be a problem, because at the end of the day, that's his obligation. He's appointed not to do the best for us, but to do the best to enforce that judgment, with Owen Oyston sat on his shoulder looking at the prices he's getting. So he's got a difficult job. I think what we all want, the elegant solution that we all want, which is a great owner for Blackpool, somebody who retires to Blackpool, somebody who can share our ambitions as to where the football club should go. And all I can say is that there are people who I am aware of who've registered interest who I think fit that bill. Now, whether they're the ultimate purchaser remains to be seen. So, but it's exciting. I think this, the quality of the people that I'm aware of is beyond is beyond doubt. I can't put those names into the public domain for obvious reasons, because they've told me of their interest on a confidential basis, and I've got to respect that confidentiality. If anybody just wants to go public, if anybody wants to contact BST and publicly state they're interested, then they're more than willing to, they can do that, and that, I think that might happen at some point. I think bidders will actually, once they've satisfied, people will, while they're still inquiring, in my view, won't want to put their names into the public domain until they know that they're going forward with the process, and then they might come to BST and say, look, will you endorse us, or whatever it might be. I know they've had people do that already, so. But it's an exciting period to be a Blackpool fan. There's bound to be uncertainty. We always knew that this wasn't going to be straightforward. I think so far it's possibly been better than we could have expected, and that's because of a lot of hard work. I see it on a pretty much a daily basis, most certainly in that first 2 weeks. But Michael and Ben and Ian, people we'd all been loved to have had involved in various shapes or forms. We might not always agree with their views, we might not always agree with their policies, but what we can't deny is that they've got an experience in football, and that experience has been crucial to delivering as smooth a transition as we can possibly hope for. And I'm hoping we're going to go into some very exciting times over the next 12 months, 2 years, with a new owner that's going to make up for the last 4 years of crap, put it bluntly, that we've had to put up with. Okay.
I'll finish it up.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Tim, I'm going to Can we quell these rumours that one Oyston's in his penthouse watching matches and the other is bringing somebody in to buy, with him behind it, sort of thing? Is it? Are you hearing anything about this? Because there's loads of rumours on the. There
was some Chinese rumours. I'll tell you what I know. There was Chinese rumours last week that Owen Oyston was back in the penthouse. What that actually boiled down to at the end of the day is a lot, and we get a lot of this at the moment, and we see a lot of it come on the forums, and it has a grain of truth, but then it's been taken out of proportion, and different people tell people different things that ends up being gospel at the end of the day when it's actually not. The penthouse is a residential property, and that means it's not as straightforward to get physical possession as it is with commercial parts of the premises. And I think Derek, who's Owen's bodyguard, is back in Blackpool, has been seen in Blackpool over the course of the last few days, and Christine's seen him. And the automatic rumour is if Derek's here, so's Owen, because Derek, if you ever seen him, he never leaves Owen's side. The reality is he's here on his own, as we understand it. Owen is not in the penthouse. He didn't watch the game from the penthouse. My understanding is, most certainly, I don't know where his day-to-day movements, but as at last Saturday, he was in Spain. So, last Saturday, he was in Spain, in Estepona, in the place he's got out there. That's my understanding. He's not been seen at the football club. I think it's reasonable to conclude that if he had come to the football club at any stage, we might know about it, because he's hardly inconspicuous, is he? So, I can't say he won't ever come back. I can't say even he wouldn't be here today. I have no idea. But he wasn't here at the last game, despite what people were saying. And I don't believe he's going to be here today either. And we question the rumours that he might front a bid.
Apparently he's trying to get somebody with him to buy the club and then...
forever.
Yeah. Steve, Christine, a few other people have been here. Last meeting I had with Owen, because the rumour I've heard, which has been on the boards and has a grain of truth in it, is that he's trying to raise money to lift the receivership. So if he can raise the totality of what he needs to raise to buy off the receivership, then the receivership comes to an end and he gets the football club back. To do that, he's got to pay Valery Bellicon everything he's owed, which we don't know the exact figure because it changes on a day-to-day basis because there's a horrendous amount of interest being added. He's got to pay everything that Valery Bellicon's owed, which I would estimate is in the region of £24-25 million. He's got to pay, as I think, the receiver's costs, which were fixed at, I think, at 1.25 million, if I remember rightly. There's a few nods around the table on that one. And thirdly, I think he's also got to refinance, I suspect, the travel lodge, because the travel lodge is subject to Valery's charge. So in order to lift the receivership, there's also the debt on the travel lodge, which I suspect that will have to be paid as well. If that's right, then the figure's north of 30 million that he's got to raise. So he's 85 years old, he's got no income streams, he's going through a divorce, it would appear. He's repeatedly told people that he's raising money. Last time I met him in February 2018 to deal with fan litigation, he was about to sign a loan agreement to pay Valery Bellicon off. He was coming back. He was back in control, and he was going to take us back to the Premiership with his plans. And 15, 16 months later, that hasn't happened. The receiver's been candid from the start in saying that is a possibility. It can happen, so we can't completely exclude it. But what do we think? 85 years old, going through divorce proceedings, had plenty of opportunities to raise the finance if he could in the 14, 15 months between the judgment and the receiver's appointment without doing it, knowing that that's going to bring an extra layer of costs. And we've also got the very, very important thing from my perspective, which is what we put in the public domain 2 days ago, which is the QC's opinion on whether Owen Oyston passes the owners and directors test. Now, that is of crucial importance because if you go on Company's House, he's no longer a director of either the properties or the BFC. So forget the fact he's an owner, but he's got, my view is, and I'd like to think the EFL would agree, that he will need to resit that test. Now, when we met with Sean Harvey in March last year and gave him the grilling that we gave him, what his position was, it's not retrospective, and the only way he gets out of it is because he was already an owner when the rules came in, which didn't agree with our interpretation and doesn't agree with the QC's interpretation. And let's get straight, the QC is a specialist in dealing with the owners and directors test. And as a lawyer, I can say that opinion, which hopefully some of you have seen over the last couple of days, if you haven't, it's on the BST website, is as clear and unequivocal as you can get that he should have been banned under the retrospective rule. But in any event, the EFL agreed with us that if he was applying now, he'd be banned. So even if he gets through all those hurdles and gets the money, and bear in mind he's doing it on a very short time frame, I think he's then got to resit the test. If he's got to resit the test, he'll fail. And it doesn't matter whether you put a nominee in front. You know, if the EFL can see that you're slow in the football club and that you're making the appointments, from my perspective, that's going to fail you anyway. You don't have to be. I mean, Owen Oyston wasn't, as far as the EPL were concerned, in day-to-day control of the football club when they banned him in 2010, but didn't enforce it. They said he had to sell his shares. He didn't do it, and then they passed. We've seen what was said. I mean, I think Scudamore was quite apologetic, wasn't he, about the fact they hadn't done anything. But by the time they got around to doing something, effectively, the stable door we were shutting a bit too late because the horse had already bolted because we were getting relegated. So nobody can sit here, and I'm not going to stand here and say that Owen Oyston cannot come back, never, never, never. But let's be realistic. You know, we're looking at the percentage game, where we're at, where we were this time last year, and where we are now. It's a fantastic place to be. What we do need now is to support the interim board moving forward, and that means accepting that risk. In my view, it's a risk I'm going to take. And I've been an adherent to not a penny more since the beginning, you know, I was personally very appreciative of all the support I received when I went through my issues with Owen Oyston, which led a lot of people to come out and support what was happening to me and to others. But I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. If I live to regret it, I'll live to regret it. But you've got to get the balance right. We've got to take this football club forward. And if we effectively boycott our own board, then God knows where we're going to end up. I wouldn't even like to speculate as to what could happen. And arguably, you might even actually make it easier for Owen Oyston to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Does he still owe Clifford Chance his fees?
I believe the figures that I quoted will include what happens with fees is that they get assessed by the court at a later date. So there'll be interim payments that were made. So you'll see some type of interim payment of 250,000 for a hearing or whatever it might have been. And for the main hearing, I don't know whether there was an interim payment on the main trial. Can't remember now. I think there wasn't there, of £2 million or something, was it? So the figures are, I'm affected.
The first 10 million.
Yeah.
It was in the first 10 million.
Yeah, and what we did, so what they'll do is they'll have an interim payment, but that doesn't mean it's the extent of the liability. And the court go through and scrutinise it and decide what's allowed. So in those figures I'm giving, I'm estimating a figure for quantified costs at the moment. So I've sort of put, but it's only a guess figure, it's not an accurate one. And the only people who give you the accurate figure are Clifford Chance.
Tim, right.
Yeah. You've got plenty more to talk about anyway. Listen, I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. If you want to contact me individually, do so. Just bear in mind, it might take a while to get back to you, but I'll do my best. And I'll come to as many meetings as I want to just keep everybody up to date about where we're up to. There's going to be a lot going on.
Realises how much work this gentleman is putting in on all our behalf, not just BST members, the whole of the Blackpool fan base. Everything he's doing, you know, it's voluntary work, and it's like a full-time job for him on top of his own job. So, you know, huge thank you, and it's great to have somebody. Isn't it wonderful that we've actually got a voice at last? If anybody else does have any questions or you think of any, please email them to Steve at secretary@blackpoolsupporterstrust.com, and we will try and get answers from the board or from the receiver for you. Or always contact us, we will do our best. Right, moving quickly on because time is ticking. I'm very pleased to welcome Ashley Hackett, who is the CEO of the Blackpool FC Community Trust. We've been waiting for years, literally, to be able to work with the Community Trust. They are one of the best in the country. They're doing fantastic work for this area, and even under the terrible restrictions that they've had. So now that the shackles have come off, there's absolutely no limit to where we can go, and we as a trust want to work with them. So Ashley's just going to tell you a little bit about that.
Thanks, Christine. No pressure there either. Sky's the limit. It's great to be here, it really is, and our full team that we've got are really excited that we can now work with the whole community. We've actually got one of our trustees as well at the back, in Chris Lickis, and again, it's been talked about for years about finally being able to sort of work with the Supporters Trust, and it's fantastic to see a room full of tangerine, because it's been a while since we've been able to see it. Ironically, as a community trust, we're actually celebrating 10 years as a charity this year. We are a completely independent charity. We are ran completely separate. You can tell I've said this a lot of times, haven't you, in a lot of meetings about the finances done completely different. We are ran as a board, and then myself, who runs it as the CEO, with a senior team that I work alongside as well. So it is a self-funding programme. We raise all our funds through funding applications, through participants paying to attend a host of our provision. No surprises, we've not been able to receive any sponsorship for the last few years, and that is certainly an area where Christine says that the sky becomes the limit, is something that we're hoping we're going to be able to maximise over certainly the next 6 to 12 months. In the last 12 months, we've worked with 21,000 different people in Blackpool. You think 140,000 in the town, it's a big amount of the people in our town that are engaging in a lot of our provision. With 50 local people working within the trust across a host of provision, very much focused on health, education and physical activity. We're there to try and make people in Blackpool's lives better, whether it's through just coming and playing a game of football, whether it's coming and engaging in some of our mental health provision, whether it's actually supporting people back into work, or whether it's actually to support them to gain their education once they've finished or during school. Our youngest participant last year was 4 months old, and our oldest was 98, so we've certainly got a provision for everyone. One of the big things that we're really excited about, for the last 4 years, we've delivered a family fun day on as close to the end of the season. We've normally done the second to last game, because the last game's been quite preoccupied with another community event, so we've tended to do the one before. This year we're really pleased that we can actually deliver it on the last game on the 4th of May, working really closely with BST, a number of other people. So we've got our family event going on from 2:30 on the North Stand car park. We're going to have a host of different activities going on. We've got a giant five-a-side inflatable football pitch. We have lots of other sports and activities going on. We've got the Swap-A-Rama going on with the ex-players. We've got Rob Purden coming down to do some free caricatures of some of the kids. We've got a food bank collection going on, which at the moment we're getting all the kids and all the different participants to bring different produce down so that we can then donate that to the Blackpool Food Bank. And we've also been able to receive 2,000 free tickets, which we're giving away to young people in the town. That's been sponsored by Tower Insurance. So it actually means it's not meant a loss for the football club. We've been able to still make sure that they receive their income, as Tim's mentioned there, how important that is. But what we've done then is with the kids that we're getting to come to the game, we've said they need to bring some food for the food bank in receipt for their ticket. So we're expecting a big amount that we can donate over. And again, if there's anything that anyone wants to bring along, please do so on the 4th. So lots and lots of activities going on. BST have kindly already offered to bring some volunteers down as well. And we've got lots of different things that we're going to be doing over the next few months.
That's you.
That's you, yeah, sorry. Please come and help. Some of the things I want to mention, Jason's just put some leaflets around on some of the tables. We deliver a Sporting Memories programme, very much focused at trying to work with people who may be at the risk of dementia or already living with it, but also just people who want to come along for a social. And it's exactly as it says on the tin. It's very much about coming along and talking about sporting things that have gone on in the past, very much around Blackpool. And we've got 2 events coming up on the 24th of April on Wednesday, And on the 2nd of May, very much focused around that very first cup final that we unfortunately lost to Manchester United, and then obviously the 53 final where we won our only FA Cup, unfortunately. But again, great opportunity to come down and talk about those great days. But it also gives you an opportunity to find out about that provision, the amount of extra things we've got going on. We've also got our next Fit Fans in Training, which is our FFIT weight management programme. We've delivered 3 now this season, 2 for men, 1 for the ladies, which is just going on at the moment. We've got the next programme starting for men in May. It's a 13-week weight management programme for 35 to 65-year-olds. It's free, and it gives you a real opportunity to then lose a few pounds just before the summer, but also then to engage in some regular activity that you can get involved in. We've got all our walking football. I can see some participants in the room today. We've got every Monday at Play Football, we have a session at 4:30, and then we've got our new programme that's at 6 o'clock for 35 plus. We do the same on a Thursday at 4:30 for, is it 50 plus? It's 50 plus, isn't it? 50 plus on Monday and a Thursday at 4:30. 4:15, sorry. Tell I'm never on time. And then obviously we've got the 35 plus at 6 o'clock on a Monday, and we're hoping to start a second one to follow the 50 plus on a Thursday. And then we also do a session on a Tuesday lunchtime at the Living YMCA. So lots to engage in there. And we're also, 5 of us are taking part in the big sleep out to support Street Life on Friday. So we're currently raising funds for Street Life. I think we've raised about £600 so far towards that charity. Last time they emailed me, we were the 2nd highest fundraiser for the event so far. We've only been fundraising for 2 weeks. So again, all the information's on our Twitter. Please, if anyone's got any sleeping bags, let me know, because I'll be freezing on Friday. But yeah, we're there to also try and support other local charities that need it as well. So lots and lots going on. Me and Christine were just talking earlier about maybe making this a bit of a regular thing to come down and make you aware of all the different stuff going on. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, keep checking our website. We've got lots and lots going on for everyone, and hopefully we're going to see more of you come and engage as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, and that's to say it's very encouraging that we can now move forward and get involved. It's wonderful, wonderful. Right, let's move on to item 3, which is governance. I say I am conscious of the time, so please don't worry, we will get through this. There's a lot going on with governance, and I think we've realised with all the rumours and the stuff that's going on at the moment, and is Owen going to be able to come back, blah, 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 how important it is that governance is sorted out, and that there's just so many football clubs now that are struggling with rogue owners. So we need to do something about it, and obviously Blackpool and Blackpool Supporters Trust especially has been at the forefront of this change for some time. Now, Tim's already spoken about the QC's opinion. I hope many of you have seen it. If you haven't, please go on our website and read it, because it's very, very important. What I can tell you is that the National Fan Organisation has picked it up, and they are now going to be in touch with the FA's legal team. We need to challenge what is going on in football governance. We need to challenge the FL, the Premier League, the FA, because they've been failing us all for far, far too long. And I also hope that by reading the QC opinion, that it will give confidence to so many people who are worried about Owen coming back, because it really is just another massive obstacle in his way. These things are hugely important. And I say, as your trust, we will continue to keep working on all of these issues and trying to push forward, linking up with other clubs, other trusts. Momentum is absolutely gathering, and national media is really very involved in this now. I think they're realising how far behind they've been and what a big story this is becoming. So now we've got people like Henry Winter at the Times and David Conn at the Guardian are very much on side. There will be a lot more coming out about this, and that's how it absolutely needs to be. I'd also like to mention the open letter that we came up with actually before the hearing back in February, where we were basically trying to get businesses, local politicians, councillors to sign this open letter to Owen to basically say, you need to go, you need to stop all this, you've got to give it up. We've kind of resurrected it simply because of all that's going on and the fact that there's even the tiniest technical possibility of him coming back. Andy Higgins, who's not here today, but he has been doing quite a lot of work with our local MPs and has basically now got all of them, isn't it? He's got all of them, all the Fylde Coast MPs have agreed to sign it. We've got Councillor Williams here, who has also agreed to sign it. We've got a few ex-players. So this is something that we can go public with and intend to do so quite quickly. And again, I think it's just another thing that is very important, that as a community, what a difference being Oyston Free has made, how everybody is now behind an Oyston Free Blackpool FC and what a difference it makes. So seriously, even the suggestion of him coming back is unthinkable. And I would hope that the community that's now got behind the club would continue to do so in resisting any attempt made by Mr. Oyston. What else have I got to say about governance? Right, I'm going to just hand over quickly to Robbie here, because many of you know that Andy Higgins is standing as an independent candidate in the Brunswick ward, and although it's not technically a BST thing, it does overlap a little bit, so I'm just going to let Robbie speak to you.
Thank you, Christine, and good afternoon, everybody. Forgive me if I keep looking at my phone, but Andy's given me a long list of things that he wants me to cover, some of which I will do and some of which I won't. For those of you who don't know Andy, he actually stood in the parliamentary elections in Blackpool South in 2015 and did a very respectable job of standing as an independent candidate there. And he has decided that he is going to stand in the local elections in Blackpool, which are taking place in 10 days' time. I think it's fair to say that, as Christine says, this is not a BST initiative. He's standing as an independent. It's his own decision. He took it very quickly. I think there are three probably main reasons why he has chosen to stand. One of which I think will resonate with all of you, in that he's pretty fed up with the way that the national parties are doing at the national level. For reasons which we don't need to go into here, because we'll be here all night. I think that translates also into him being dissatisfied with the way that the two major parties in particular have performed at the local level in Blackpool over a long period of time now. And I think the third element to his dissatisfaction that really pushed him into standing was, let's just say that he's not entirely enamoured with the performance of Simon Blackburn and the Labour group in Blackpool.
Who is?
And Mr. Blackburn is standing as a Labour candidate in the Brunswick ward.
Vote him out.
And Andy is standing, along with Gary Coleman, who is an ex-Labour candidate and actually won a seat for Labour there last time. They are standing in the Brunswick ward in 10 days' time. A tremendous amount of work is going into that, as you might imagine. If you don't take anything else away from this meeting today, can I just say to you, weloveyoublackpool.com. That's where you'll find all you need to know about Andy, what he's up to, what he's trying to achieve. He's got a ready band of volunteers who are helping him to put leaflets out, which Ray's waving at me at the moment, and are on many of your tables. He does need volunteers to help leaflet this coming Sunday, and again on Wednesday the 4th, on the Wednesday before the election takes place. And he will need people to be at polling stations on Corn Street and Newton Drive on the day. It would be remiss of me not to say something about Ashley Knowles, Steve Redwin, Chris Rees, Ray Gregson, Mike Edwards and Neil Holden, all of whom he asked me to name check as being people who've gone above and beyond in helping him thus far. But in the case of volunteers, it's the more the merrier. If you're not sure where the Brunswick ward is, it's that bit that's sort of sandwiched between the Talbot ward and Leighton, so it takes in places like Buchanan Street, Corn Street, Devonshire Road, the Devonshire Road end of Newton Drive, Victory Victory Street, is it? If like me you think in terms of pubs, it's the number 3, the number 4 and the Victory. If you live in the area, Andy would really love it if you gave a vote to him as your independent candidate for an independent way of looking at Blackpool's problems. If you know somebody who lives in the ward and you can twist their arm to vote for him, that would be great as well. He thinks that about 600 votes might swing it for him to actually succeed. That's obviously a big ask, but he thinks that he might be able to do it. And he really needs people to turn out and support him. The other thing I just wanted to mention as well was the way that the council is currently constituted. Labour have an absolute majority and are comfortably the biggest party, but they only need to lose about 6 seats across the entire council to lose overall control of Blackpool Borough Council. So there is a lot to play for. And I think, you know, if people are dissatisfied and want a new approach and a new way of looking at the issues that face the town, then do go to weloveyoublackpool.com, because Andy's got plenty to say about things that we could be doing differently and could be doing better. Can I say something just about the QC stuff as well?
Sure. Yeah.
For those of you who haven't read the QC's opinion on the officers and directors test, 2 phrases spring to mind there actually. One was that Sean Harvey's position on all of this is essentially incoherent, and the second is that the interpretation that the EFL have adopted of their own regulations is muddle-headed. I can't think of anything more astonishing really, or more damning of them as an organisation. We've held that opinion back until the right time to use it. I'm sure the EFL hopes that by taking the right decision with regard to the 12-point deduction that might quieten us for a moment, but they've actually done only the easy bit of it. It was very easy to take the approach that they did to the points deduction. But actually that ducks the main issue, which is that really Owen Oyston, given the way that he's behaved and has been proved to have behaved in court, not only should not have the opportunity to have a part in playing at our football club, he shouldn't be allowed to take part in any football club in the future. And by bringing this opinion out now and raising the stakes in terms of the way that the EFL have chosen to look at it in the past, we're actually asking them to take a difficult decision, take the right decision, and do it for the benefit of everybody in football, because every football club is only one bad owner away from disaster. Thank you.